Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at yet another wonderful mod, this time in the form of the SpaceX ASDS, which stands for Autonomous SpacePort Drone Ship, being made by forum user Science Panda, and what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is, well, the SpaceX ASDS, which is of course the landing platform / somewhat glorified barge that SpaceX has been attempting to land their rockets on since last year in November 2014, I believe. So far, unsuccessfully, which means, hey, it's a perfect fit for Kerbal Space Program, as if there is one thing we are good at in this game, it's failed landings resulting in large explosions. So let's just have a gander at the spaceplane hangar to see what this does add into the game. And that is this, the Autonomous Spaceport Drone Ship, which is... oh boy, is gigantic. If we click it, we are greeted by a screen full of gray. And if we zoom out, go to the side, and then plop this thing down on the floor, you can see the SpaceX Autonomous Spaceport Drone Ship in all of its enormous glory, taking up the vast majority of the spaceplane hangar here. But let's take a look at the stats for this thing first, and it is, of course, an autonomous drone ship, so it is an unmanned command pod, and you really don't have to worry about power, as it does have a built-in generator producing 45 electric charge per minute. It also has a pretty powerful reaction wheel with 50,000 torque in whatever direction you desire, as well as a nice SAS, and of course a battery holding a whopping 50,000 electric charge. Now this is all thrown into a ship that has a mass of 20, and most importantly, a crash tolerance of 50,000 meters per second, because of course, it definitely needs that very, very high crash tolerance, because you are using this as a landing platform. You are going to be attempting, possibly unsuccessfully, to land things here and possibly having explosions ensue. So yeah, this thing needs to be able to withstand quite the beating, which I'm sure some of you out there will take as a challenge, and I hope so, because with that high of a crash tolerance, I'd be quite intrigued to see what you guys can come up with that could actually destroy this. I'm sure it would be quite impressive. But yes, this is the Autonomous Spaceport Drone Ship, which you may notice there was one thing I hadn't talked about yet on here that I kind of skipped over, and that's the MechJeb core. It is suggested that you also install MechJeb with this mod. And this ship in particular is, of course, has a MechJeb core built into it for easy control. And it's mainly suggesting MechJeb for the sake of stability when this thing is out on the ocean, which we'll talk about more in a moment when we get out there. But first, you may be wondering, how in the crap do you get this giant thing out there? Well, if you're like me, you'll just cheat and use HyperEdit, which is wonderful, but if you would actually like to try and get this thing out into the water without using the cheaty goodness of HyperEdit, well, it does have some attachment points if we sort of phase into this thing, because these attachment points are not visible on the outside. You have to kind of go onto the inside here, and you'll see we have two attachment points, one on either side on here, as well as one on the bottom of the barge, 3 in the front, and another 3 in the back. And all of these attachment points are there specifically to allow you to build some form of contraption to get this thing down the runway and into the water. Good luck with that. I'll stick with HyperEdit. Now, you'll also notice there is a visible attachment point on the top of the barge here, which is quite interesting. It's kind of finicky to work with here in the spaceplane hangar, but if you load into the vehicle assembly building and then use HyperEdit from there, from the launch pad, you can actually build a small rocket on this thing if you so desire. Again, it's a little finicky, but it is possible. But yes, overall, I'd say this is more of a landing platform than a launch platform, so let's go and take a look at this thing on the runway. Though before we do, I'm actually going to load up this SpaceX ASDS. purely because I want the name on there rather than untitled spacecrafts. And let's go to launch to take a look at this thing in its full glory. Because, of course, the spaceplane hangar is somewhat limited in how you can view things. And boom, there we go, this gigantic SpaceX ASDS here, which is almost as wide as the runway. If it was turned 90 degrees, would be wider than the runway with the length of this, and is larger than the standard launch pad over there. And overall, is just a beautiful piece of work. The modeling on it is very well done. I love all the struts. They went to good detailing on all of those. The supports for the main landing platform here, all the little compartments on the barge. It's all quite well done. My only complaint with it is the texturing. Now, I love the landing platform with the SpaceX logo. That all looks quite cool. But the solid color of the barge and the solid color of all of these little outbuildings, it kind of puts me off. It's something I've had a complaint about with a lot of mods out there. The modeling will be great and the texturing will overall be effective and decent, but the texturing, for lack of a better word, doesn't have much actual texture to it. It's just a pure flat color. There's no depth to it or anything, and it kind of puts me off a little bit, but it's a small little complaint. Hopefully that'll be fixed in the future, because yeah, it's just the flat colors of things just makes me kind of weirded out. But overall, absolutely gorgeous. And let's actually get this thing out into the water now, of course using the glory of hyper edit. And if we set the current, set that to like, oh boy, 50. And I believe if I set that, oh no, 10 actually, we'll need 50 later, then set that to like 6. I believe that should, yes, put us out into the water just outside of the Kerbal Space Center, and we'll slowly lower into the ocean, where we will begin to talk about that issue of stability and the reason why it's recommended that you use MechJeb. Now, if you'll notice, with just this thing landed in the water and SAS turned off, it'll end up sitting in the water at kind of a wonky angle. The back of the barge tends to sink down deeper than the front of the barge, which can be problematic. If you're even slightly off-center on this, and with your ship when you land, well, that back's just going to go down into the water and you're going to flip this barge over, which is equally as much of an issue if you're slightly out from the center in either direction this way as well. Without the SAS turned on, this thing is a death trap. Now, if you do turn on the SAS, it's a little bit better. Remember, it has 50,000 torque on this thing, so it's pretty decent at keeping this platform stable. And I've found in my testing, as long as you land within this yellow circle, your ship should be fine, as long as you have SAS turned on. If you land in this white circle, things get a little scary from there. It all depends on the weight of your ship that you're landing. If it's a small craft that you're landing, you'll probably be fine. If it's a large ship, oh, this thing's flipping over and it's all going into the drink. And if you land outside of the circle, even with SAS turned on, there is no power in this world that can help you. You're going into the water. And that is why it is recommended that you turn on MechJeb, because MechJeb has the Smart ASS, which if you turn on surface and then up, it will, as you can notice, it levels out the whole barge quite nicely, and then this thing is basically a static object. You could land on this far corner and you'll be fine, because it is forcing the surface of this ship to always point up. It's essentially solid at this point. Not quite. If you hit it with enough force, it's still gonna flip over and you're going to end up in the ocean. But it's a lot more stable and you can pretty much land anywhere. Now again, with this off and just normal SAS by the in-game standard, in this circle you're good, in this circle it all depends on the weight of the ship you land. So let's actually turn on the Smart ASS and go grab ourselves a ship real quick. So if we go back to the Space Center and grab a rocket that I made in all of about 20 seconds, and use, of course, HyperEdit to get it over there more quickly, because I am a horrible pilot, and if we tried to fly there, well, we'd probably overshoot it by a few hundred miles. Not joking, sadly. let's go to this, and we'll make this 50. I'm also going to turn back on MechJeb and use the landing guidance because we are going to have it land on the dead center of the platform. So let's activate our engine, go to land, and then turn off landing and turn off MechJeb landing guidance. And there we go. It is just going to power itself in, and we are going to land dead on in that circle. And with the Smart ASS, we are pretty much good, as I said, to land anywhere on this barge, and it will be good. Now, what I'm going to do is attempt to fly. Oh boy, because there's an issue with HyperEdit. If I tell this to land again, it gets confused because we actually have two ships landed on top of one another. And if I use HyperEdit again to turn on landing, for some reason it forces the barge to the bottom of the ocean. So it's a HyperEdit issue, not an in-game issue or a MechJeb issue. It's the downside of cheating. So we're actually going to have to vaguely fly this thing. And I'm going to try and bring it over to the side if we can land this thing correctly. Okay, come on. A little bit more throttle. You all know I'm a horrible pilot, so this could go very poorly for me. Let's... Oh boy. Oh yeah, it's going horribly. I went too much. I turned the wrong way. Okay, let's... Oh yeah, I'm going everywhere. Okay, new plan. Let's get away from the platform, and then we'll change this. Okay. Oh, nope, that's not the number I wanted. I wanted a 9. And cut engine. And then land. And turn off landing. Let it auto land. And we're slightly off center. This is what I wanted to do. So flying somewhat away, you'll notice we're pushing down the barge. Now that's the force of the engine sort of buckling the barge a bit, but the barge does still have Smart ASS turned on, so it's good. Now if we actually switch back over to the barge here momentarily, there we go. Oh boy, it's tipping. Oh god, I brought this upon myself. When you momentarily switch back to the barge, it just slightly loses its SAS for a second, which is not good. So we have kind of tilted this thing. What I was going to do is switch this back over to regular SAS rather than Smart SAS and do that landing again. We may still be able to if I can do this quick enough. So, off and there. Boom. Okay, we've done it. Oh god, how am I going to take off this rocket now? I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, I don't think we could launch off sideways real quick. Let's launch back to this. Let's see if we can. If not, we'll just reload the rocket. Okay. And... Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can't do it. Oh, it's exploded. And you'll notice it exploded, but the barge is okay. Yes, that's exactly what I was wanting to demonstrate. I didn't screw that up in the slightest. Yeah. Alright, let's recover this vessel and just go grab another rocket. And the SAS is turned on now, so we should be able to land it on that point, which was at the slightly off-center. And try this again. Oh, though... Test ship debris. Let's just make sure that our barge is still out there. Yes, it is. Beautiful. Just to make sure I didn't mess anything up even further. And grab ourselves another crappy test ship. Beautiful. And... we will go... launch. You... land... Oh, it did the thing. It did the thing. See, it's on the bottom of the ocean now. I told you guys that happens sometimes with the HyperEdit. Okay. I'm going to bring you guys back in a second once I fix this issue. What I have to do is go and reload the save file from when I just put this in the water. So I'll be back in a sec, and I'll get this rocket ready to land off kilter on the platform with just the regular SAS to show you the difference in force. So I'll bring you back in a moment. Okay, and we are back. I've put a new platform out there, so hopefully when we go to land this time, yes, there it is, and it's not sunk to the bottom of the ocean now. Again, that's a weird thing that HyperEdit does, so I do apologize for that, but that is the problem with cheating. Sometimes it doesn't work quite so well. So this time we have the barge just on pure SAS, and we're going to land right at the edge of that yellow circle. So we still should be good. We're seeing it kind of buckle a little bit with the engine power, but overall, with the normal barge with SAS without MechJeb, it's actually working okay. Now, oh god, I need to actually take off again. What I'm gonna do is, let's change this to a 9. Oh, that's not a 9. Oh boy, okay. Change that to that, so we'll land a little bit further to the side, so we'll still have to sort of power ourselves away from the ship a little bit. As we did discover that did work. If we fly away from the barge slightly before doing the landing thing again, it shouldn't sink to the bottom of the ocean. It's just when you do it quite close to it. So, let us cut engines. Go to land. And land here. Okay, now we're going to be... Ooh, it kind of went a little bit further than I thought, but we're going to be still in the white, it looks like. And again, this is with the SAS turned on. And we're still pretty much good. So even with just the normal SAS, we're okay. We really don't have any issues with things. So that is a positive. Now what I'm going to do is turn this back to the original 8.5, take us off again, and then show you why you at the very least need to turn on the SAS. Now, ideally, you'll use the MechJeb, because again, that'll give you the most solid base. But even with just the normal SAS turned on, you can see from these last two landings, it's gone quite well. So, what we're going to do, land ourselves again. Let's level ourselves out here. We should be pretty much dead on. I'm actually just going to let this thing land on its own. Not powered, so we should drop right on that center point. Let's get it a little bit more. There we go. There we go. And just let it gracefully float down to the center of the X. And then I'll show you why you need at least these things on. At least one of them. Oh god, that we're going to switch back and forth between the ship, or the rocket, and the barge again. I'm hoping we'll be fine, because we'll be right in the middle. Okay, let's find out. And switch! Make sure that that's up, just to make sure it's not all nice and stable. So, if we turn everything off, both the Smart ASS, which I just turned on briefly to make sure we were stable, and of course don't turn on the SAS, even when dead center, I just turned it all off, you'll notice the barge is sinking over there, because we have weight on this platform. So at least with normal SAS, even with that little bit on, your platform should be safe. But even with a small ship like this, not having SAS on, at the very least, will end up with this thing just, oh boy, going to hell. So if we turn on the SAS, boom, we're good. We've destroyed our rocket completely because I kind of whipped it around, but the platform is good again. Yeah, so just, at the very least, SAS needs to be on. MechJeb, once more, preferred, but isn't necessary. I personally have been preferring it off because of the issue with MechJeb. If you do go far away, like we've been fine because we've been switching between ships in a relatively small area, but if, say, you were coming back in from space and you wanted to land on this platform, you would have to actually switch back to this MechJeb platform, turn on the Smart ASS before going back to your ship to land. So you'd have to switch back and forth, basically, which I don't like the idea of doing, but just defaulting it to always have the SAS on, and you should be good. You just want to make sure that it's nice and level, and even with that, as long as you're within the circles, you should be perfectly okay. But yes, that has been the SpaceX Autonomous Spaceport Drone System, and it's glorious. I really do like this thing, just because it's a bit of an oddity, and, well, I like things like that. So, if you would like to give this a try for yourself, you can take a look at the link in the description as always, and if you do download it, love it, and land some really cool stuff on one of these platforms, I would love to see what you create. Or, alternatively, if you find a way to blow this thing up with a really big boom, I'd also love to see it, so tweet me, or Facebook me, or Google+, whatever social medias you use, and yeah, I'd love to see it, and I do hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and that you do, of course, come back for the next. But until then, thank you for watching, my friends, and as always, have a good one.